Hello world, I am Curtis Simpson and this is Jectives Typography News number 17. Today is September 21st, 2025 and I have branding to go over today and an upcoming event from Letterform Archive. We have a couple of very interesting articles, one from AIGA and one from Creative Boom. And then we have the star of the show, new releases. We have another new release of Futura. I don't know why I say another, but I guess because there have been a bunch of revivals of it. And then we have some interesting typefaces. We have one from Laura Meseguer. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I know she's, I know it's pronounced in like a Spanish accent. And then we have one from Optimo, one from Grilli Type, and one from Blaze Type. I saved those three at the end because they're all kind of similar, and they also go in line with the article that we're going to look at from Creative Boom. So I think we've got a nice through thread. How do we normally say it? We've got a nice thread going through today's episode. And then we're going to finish with a fun article by TypeTogether about a trip to the Minnesota State Fair. So let's hop into it. Let's look at some branding, and this is going to be branding that is for not client work, but for actual foundries. So we're going to start out with what used to be Alanna Munro, and now is, so it used to be Alanna Munro Type Foundry. And maybe I'm saying that wrong. Maybe I'm saying it right. Hopefully I'm saying it right. In my brain, for like however long I've been aware of this Type Foundry and this designer, I've been saying her name as Alanna in my head just because the two hard ends, but I saw an interview with her and Pimp My Type from a couple years ago and he pronounced it Alanna, so I'm going to go with that. I apologize if it's wrong, but she has changed the name of her foundry to Arcane Type. Let's just look at, how do I want to start? Let's look at this email that she sent out because here's the old logo. And you can see the new logo right there. This is like a GIF animation that's scaled up to 300%. So it's gonna look a little wonky, but I think you'll get the idea. I have always, recognized her little face icon in my news feed on, I don't know, Blue Sky or whenever she popped up on any social media or any platforms. So for me, it's gonna take a second to recognize Arcane as being Alanna. But I think this is a really exciting one, even if it is, even if she is like, a smaller player in the type industry, because I think the most interesting stuff is coming from independent foundries. And I think this is a good lesson in branding in general. So let's go ahead. I'm going to read just a little bit of her. I'm going to call this a press release, but she's got it labeled as commentary. It's under the article section. So I would consider this to be a press release. I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of it. Let me check my notes real quick. So yeah, she has been teasing this for a while. If you are already a follower of hers, you would know that she's been teasing this rebrand for a little bit in terms of the name and stuff, but I don't necessarily recall seeing the actual branding. So if you were following Alanna before, some of this might not be entirely new to you, but I feel like the explanation is still kind of fun and there's a little bit of a lesson in branding for anyone. So I'm going to go ahead and read. What are we going to read here? I think I'm going to read like a few chapters here, a few paragraphs here, chapters. I wrote down a note for myself of which ones I wanted to read, but I'm a little lost on those. So she says, why not my own name? When thinking of how my branding could authentically communicate who I was and what I do, I came to the realization that working under your name means absolutely nothing unless you are ubiquitous. I don't know if I've ever said that out loud. Ubiquitous enough that people know who you are, not my reality. Let's zoom in on this so we can make it a little bit easier to read if you are trying to follow along. I think that looks good. And then her second reason is just she dislikes being the center of attention. I'm like 90% sure that she's Canadian. You can see by the way she spelled center here. But I've seen her post some stuff about Canadian foundries, so I think that she is Canadian. And actually 100% she is, because she is part of Type Brigade. If you're not familiar, look it up on YouTube. So after a 5-year journey of running a Type Foundry, I decided to lean into the fact that I am a huge nerd. I love anime, video games, Dungeons and Dragons, Lego, board games, fantasy fiction, and most of all, type design. I think this is a great lesson in branding. I'm just going to stop after each paragraph, so we're just going to read a couple more. But I think this is a great lesson in branding because when you're first starting out, it's very easy to just kind of be like, okay, what should a Type Foundry look like? Or what's the easiest thing that I can do here? The easiest thing is take on your own name. When I was doing freelance design work, I just used my own name. And it was always a pain trying to separate the two because I don't know, it's the easiest, it's the natural thing to do is to use your name. But we see it a lot of examples of this where people were using their own name and then they use a brand name later on, or maybe there's a foundry that's literally just one person, like Arcane, and they use a brand name. I remember seeing this. Gosh, what was the band? There was a band back in the day. Oh, Dashboard Confessional. Remember Dashboard Confessional before? I know he plays with a band and stuff like that, and maybe it is a full band now. But I remember before there were like some emo bands and stuff that would just be one person. But there is a different feeling when there's like a name, like a brand name, like Arcane Type versus Alanna Munro or Elena Munro. So, that's the first thing. I do think we see that from other people like Dan Cederholm, I know does Simple Bits. We talked about him last week. Mark Canesso, his brand is PS Type. And then we have Alan, who has Silver Stag. Like those are 3 that we just talked about last week that are basically one-person shops that are using brand names. And the brand names are definitely more memorable. It does project something else. So let's go ahead and continue and see why Arcane Type has this name. In many of the fantasy worlds, I'll go ahead and highlight where I'm at here. In many of the fantasy worlds across these nerd things, magical characters like clerics or sorcerers often receive their magic from another powerful entity, like a god, usually some kind of deal to use that magic in service of that entity. But wizards get their magic from books, learning, and studying. They work hard for their knowledge, research the arcane arts like crazy, and eventually are able to turn that into what we perceive as magic. This feels so much like type design to me. I love this, and it's something that I'd never thought about before, but I resonate so much more with this than I expected to. The definition of a wizard, I feel like that term kind of gets thrown around a little bit, wizards and gurus and things like that. But her definition of it really makes it make more sense why people would use this in terms of design and particularly type design. She continues, as a self-taught type designer, I gobbled up books, dove into archives, spoke to other wizards, and then produced fonts. All of these fonts, all fonts really, are such an amazing form of magic. She goes on to explain why she thinks that is. I'm just going to say that I completely agree with this, and it's something I've never thought of until I read Designing Type by Karen Chung. Full flip-through book review on the channel. Wasn't planning on plugging it, but it's in like the books playlist on the Jectives YouTube channel. And Karen in there mentioned something about how these glyphs are almost like these magical things that I don't think she used the term magic, but they're these things that communicate something, but to the uninitiated, the letters just mean nothing. You know, I think about runes and video games and stuff like that, or on like, I don't know, the Egyptian tombs and stuff like that, where we would see these letters, this form of communication, but if you don't understand it, you don't know what it is, and it almost does feel like magic. My wife was asking me, I don't know, a couple of weeks ago, like, why do you like typography so much? And one of the things that one of my responses was that I do feel like it is this continuation of this ancient thing that we're kind of like carrying on. You know, like people need to be literate in order to understand what we're making. But when you do, all of these type designers, of which I'm not one yet, but all of these type designers are continuing that tradition of making these letter forms again, making these little pieces that we can stick together and create sentences and communicate feelings and thoughts and so much more. And then as to typographers or designers, you know, we continue that as well as we use the typography, and authors do that, and everyone does it. But if you were an alien and you weren't part of this culture and you didn't know anything about typography, this would almost seem like a magical thing. So I love that. I'm just going to read a little bit more here. The word arcane means something mysterious, secret, and understood by few, but it's learnable if you know where to look. And that's a whole other dimension of what I do. I love to design my fonts out in the open, share my process, and teach others about these mysterious arcane ways. And aside from the deep and meaningful reasons for the word arcane, it also starts with an A, which will appear near the top of alphabetical list. So helpful. I love that. Let's go ahead and go here, and I'll go ahead and talk about what she just got done saying. She does, or she did, I think it's been a little while since she's live streamed, but she used to do a ton of live streams on Twitch, a ton of live streams on YouTube, talking about, you know, designing her typefaces out in the open. So she would be on Twitch and literally just be designing the fonts on there. There are not a lot of people that do that. I definitely can't work that way, work out in the open, just designing things. I need to be so much more focused, and maybe that's why she doesn't do it as much now. But yeah, she does that out in the open, one. And two, she has this good section here. I guess I should have pulled this up. She has the letter nerd. And so she teaches, this is just a little zine. I think it's only like 8 sections maybe. But she teaches type design in like a simple sort of way. And you actually don't have to buy this. You definitely can if you want to support her. But you could also do sign up for this email course right here. And I did this to see what it was. Sign up for the Letter Nerd email course, and she will send you these lessons, these bite-sized lessons, 1 week at a time, and it's really cool. So I think the name fits her perfectly. Oh yeah, Vancouver right here. So I think the name fits her perfectly. I think that it's really the concept behind it is really cool, and I think her fonts are really fun, and she's got great license. She's got great you know, designs and stuff like that. You can see them here. A lot of them are display typefaces, but I'm really excited to see what's to come for Arcane Type. And I think it's one worth paying attention to. So links are not in the description yet. I was running a little behind on time. So if you're watching the replay of this, they should be in the description. You can go check out Arcane Type. But otherwise, it's just arcanetype.com. And sign up for the Letter Nerd course, because it's a fun little refresher, even if you are already super familiar. And I can say that Alanna, hopefully I'm saying your name right, she does respond to emails. So I don't know, I was on maybe the 3rd or 4th one, and I had a question for her. Like, I'm very, very well versed in vector. You know, Adobe Illustrator was my favorite program. Now my favorite is Affinity Designer, but I work almost entirely in vector as much as I can. I love it. I use the pen tool constantly, but there was something specific to type design that revolved around the angles. And I just messaged her and I said, like, why are we doing this? And she replied, you know, the same day and gave me a quick explanation. And yeah, I'm a fan, and I'm excited to see what comes next for Arcane Type. The next shakeup in the industry is coming from Black Foundry. Black Foundry is actually no more, kind of. Let's zoom in on this. A new chapter begins. I reached out to Jeremy. He's French, so I've seen it pronounced Jeremy by a French speaker that was interviewing him. I tried to find out how to actually say people's names, but I generally just say them wrong. So I'm going to go with the American way to pronounce it and just say Jeremy. But I talked to him about this. I'll get into that after I read a little bit of the press release here. But the basic gist of it is that Black Foundry is going to be part of going to be part of the Type Founders. So if you've been around the industry for a little while, you've probably come across the Type Founders. Honestly, I'm still not 100% clear on what they do, other than become the home for other type foundries. And in Black Foundry's case, what's happening is that the partnership between Jeremy and, let me get the other name correct, The partnership between Jeremy and Gregory, I know that they should be pronounced in some sort of French fashion. The partnership between the two needed to be dissolved. They wanted to go do their own things. Jeremy is going to start his own Type Foundry, which I'm going to get to in a second. Gregory is going to focus on his branding studio agency. So they wanted to go do their own things, but they needed a good place for their typefaces. All these fonts that they made, which they have a huge collection of super impressive fonts on here. I think I counted before, but I forget now. It's 56 maybe, somewhere between 50 and close to 60 typefaces. And all of these are going to be still in existence and still available via the Type Founders. And if you look down at the little copyright at the bottom, it says Type Founders LLC. So they have been absorbed. The company Black Foundry itself no longer exists, but the name and the fonts live on through the Type Foundry. So if you, I don't know, I don't know how much that's going to really influence your purchasing decisions or anything like that. But if you are wanting to keep up on the industry news, that's what's going on there. I did email Jeremy right here, Jeremy Hornis, about U+ Type because he's got this new Foundry coming up. And I am going to, let's see if I can pull this out. I'm going to go ahead and read you the email response that he wrote to me so that I can get it exactly right. So the reason for parting ways is to end the partnership. And this is an easy way to transfer the IP. Gregory is going to continue with his graphic design agency, like I said. Black Foundry is going to, maintain all of the fonts that are going on. Here's the part that I wanted to get to, though. As for U+ Type, this is his new Foundry. The vision is related to the one Black Foundry had because it was revolving around me as a type designer and a font engineer and attraction for challenges. Being technical or design culturally related, I love to undertake these challenges and innovate. I am now surrounded with great people, designers, and engineers from around the world, and I have gathered a strong know-how over the years making complex projects possible. I also want to infuse the tradition and craft of Latin typography as a pillar of the enterprise, but with the openness and mind and knowledge / understanding of other writing systems. I think this is equally interesting. I also have an idea for tools dedicated to type design and font making, but this is another story and probably a parallel venture to come. And that is Jeremy Hornis, the new founder of U+ Type Design. So that's really exciting. I messed up my notes over here. I'm just going to put this in split view again. Okay. So pretty exciting. We can check out the website real quick. There's not much going on yet, but if the fonts that were made by the two at Black Foundry, I have no doubt that the typefaces that are going to be made by U+ will be equally high in quality and equally fun for us to explore later on. It looks like he does have the Instagram up right now. I'm already following. Just one post so far, and it's the same announcement. So I think that it's great that these two things are happening. It's nice to see that the fonts got a new home, if they're going to live on. It's nice to see that Jeremy's going to continue with his type design, and it's exciting to see what's going to happen with U+. I'm excited that that Alanna has rebranded as Arcane Type, and I think this shows two major things in the industry. Let me go ahead and switch to the face cam. I think for me, this shows two different things in the industry. One, people still care about type design. If you're here, obviously that's obvious to you. But I think that sometimes people in the industry can become jaded and unmotivated, especially when you have, certain things taking place in the world that might just put a damper on type design, especially when it comes to things like AI and wondering if designers are even going to have a place anymore. But when you have people putting in the effort to rebrand, putting in the effort to create entirely new foundries, it just showcases that there still is this desire to make typefaces, to design type. And it also shows that these individuals at these independent type foundries are still invigorated and motivated to go at it, even if they are fighting against, giants like Monotype or Adobe, and maybe some of their typefaces will end up being on these platforms anyway. But I just think that it's great to see designers motivated and invigorated to go do these things, even if it's just, shaking up the name or splitting off and starting a new foundry. To me, it's a sign of optimism. So let's talk about some events. Let me go back to the screen cap. Okay, we are done with branding. Click. Upcoming event. Letterform Archive has a ton of events. Let me just go ahead and show you real quick. Tons and tons of events. They're always going on. I generally just highlight the free ones because, if you're watching YouTube, maybe you're just interested in the free ones. These are the ones that have absolutely no cost to go to, and maybe they will be sort of an inroad into all of these other events that Letterform Archive have. If you like the free one, then, maybe there will be some sort of path there where you will want to learn more and go check out the ones that cost money. And obviously the ones that are cost money are full courses and things like that. So they're going to have a lot more going on. But I'm pretty excited for this because I haven't been able to see anything about this yet. They are doing their 10th anniversary. I'm just going to scroll down because, I guess we'll leave it on there. I don't necessarily like these glyphs that move these GIFs that move so quickly. I find them to be pretty distracting, but they have an upcoming event. This is October 16th. See if we can zoom in a little more. October 16th, Letterform Archive, free online event via Zoom. I do have the Zoom link, but I'm just going to go ahead and link this here because I don't want anybody to be able to Zoom bomb without registering, but it is free. So you don't have to put in a credit card or anything like that. Just free. Go do it. They partnered with Collins to create 100 tens, and this is 50 interpretations of the number 1 from the archive. So they have a huge archive. If you don't know, I don't have time to explain what Letterform Archive is, but it's a huge typography archive. They've got 50 interpretations of the number 1 from their archive, and then they've paired, this is the exciting part for me, they paired with 50 contributors to create the other 50. So let me just read through some of these names and then we'll move on. But they are working with type designers like Susanna Lichto, Lucas Sharp, lettering artists and calligraphers like Julian Priez and Petra. Sorry, Petra, I don't know how to say your last name. Graphic designers like Braulio Amato and Marianne Banchez, illustrators like Christoph Niemann and Susan Kerr. And obviously that was 6 of them. So they're going to be like, 44 more. So I just expect a huge collection, 100 of them, obviously, but they're going to go over the 50. Some of the designers I know are going to be presenting and talking about their designs. So I think this is going to be one you don't want to miss. This is one I'm definitely not going to miss. It's going to be, looks like 12 o'clock Pacific time. So for me, that's going to be in like the afternoon. Great time for me. Sometimes these events go on late at night and it's like 1 a.m. I'm not going to be able to attend then. This one, I'll definitely be there Thursday, October 16th. The link will be in the description. Free event online via Zoom. I think it's going to be a really, really cool one. Let's move on to Creative Boom. They put out this article, and if you've been around, you know that I don't put a ton of weight into these types of lists, but this one's a tiny bit different. So I want to take a quick look at it because I do think that it also informs or helps thread that needle about through the entire episode that I mentioned before. 50 fonts that will be popular with designers in 2026. This article is by Tom May, and the sub headline, what do you call this? The byline says, we asked the creative community about the fonts they're keen to get their hands on. Read on to find out how they responded. I was not surveyed for this, but I am a part of the studio community for Creative Boom. So I think maybe that's where they did it. Maybe they sent out an email and I just didn't reply to it. But I do think the thing here that's interesting is that they did poll the community somehow. They don't indicate necessarily how they did that. But my guess would be, since they said the Creative Boom community, would be that they did via the studio, which I've talked about in another episode. Go check it out. Definitely if you, yeah, right here. So on the top of Creative Boom, click on community. You can join for free. You do have to like apply, but you'll probably get in. I think I got accepted like the same day or the next day. I think the application process is mainly to curate and not let a bunch of bots or bad actors in. So this is 50 typefaces. I'm going to speed through these and we're going to look at them really quick. And then we'll talk about what the commonalities are and what I think we can take away from it. Number one, GT America by Grilli Type. This released this year. We talked about this earlier in one of the episodes. I'm like 99% sure we did. If not, I do remember it coming out. So GT America by Grilli Type, recent release. I'm not sure how to say this. Sewn by Clem Type. And we're going to start to see some names repeating themselves almost immediately. Graphic by Commercial Type. Aeonic by Cotype Foundry. Just going to let this scroll on its own. We can kind of get a nice smooth scroll growing. New Montreal by Pangram. Not all of these are going to be brand new. Basic Grotesque, Maison New, Favorite by ABC Dynamo, Sharp Grotesque by Sharp Type, Diatype by ABC Dynamo. And I think we're probably starting to see a little bit of what's going on, right? We're getting a lot of sans serifs, a lot of neutral sans serifs. Founders Grotesques, let me have to stop it here. Apissure by Colophone Foundry. TT Norms Pro by TypeType, this incredibly popular typeface by TypeType. Pretty sure it's their most popular. Enter by Rasmus Anderson. That's an open source typeface. You can get that on Google Fonts or probably any typeface type platform. I'm sure that it's on Adobe Fonts and stuff like that as well, but you can go download that for free. Great typeface. GT Walsham by Grilli Type. Yeah, so you can see that's this one right here in blue. You can see a lot of these are neutral sans serifs. Replica by Lanetto. This one's a little more, it's still a sans serif, but it's got a little more unique vibe to it. Accurate by Lanetto. We're getting back to what the basics here. Circular by Lanetto. And we're seeing a lot of repeats, right? Swiss International by Swiss Typefaces, Euclid by Swiss Typefaces, Druck by Commercial Type, Publico by Commercial Type, Lion Text by Commercial Type, GT Secra by Grilli Type, Portrait by Commercial Type, Canella by Commercial Type, Clem Type, Grilli Type. You get the idea. That's 30 of them. I'll link this in the description. Let's go ahead and scroll through this. I'll go ahead and keep talking. I'll link this in the description, and you can go check these out. I do think that it's worthwhile to check out. One, because these are solid typefaces, no question about it. This doesn't really feel like an advertisement like sometimes these lists do. Sometimes these lists, the links are all affiliate links. Let me go ahead and you can see down at the bottom there, this one's not, but if I click on it, it opens up. There's no affiliate link here. Creative Boom's not making money off of releasing this list. Feels like a genuine list. And I think the two things to take away from this are, one, a lot of sans serifs. Sans serifs still king, no matter what anybody predicts about next year or recaps about the year before. Sans serifs are going nowhere. They're just too useful. I'll have more to say about that when we look at the new typefaces. The second thing I think that's worth noting here is that these were polls from the community. So this isn't just Tom May's opinion on what are going to be popular in 2026, which is what a lot of these lists are. These are actually community members, presumably from the studio, Creative Boom's community, stating what they're excited about. And so I do think that it's cool and interesting to see what the community is particularly excited about, because this is likely what we will see trending next year and in the next years to come. As I often say on here, typography moves very slow. So I would expect that if people are excited about these in mid to late 2025, these will still be relevant in 2028. So Like I said, also we see a lot of the same repeats on there. And I'm actually going to go ahead and skip over our next article. We were going to talk about some AIGA stuff, but I think it's too important to just keep this vibe going here, and we'll talk about the new releases now and then come back to AIGA if we have time. So this first one here is by TypeTogether. Huge release, huge, actually, in several senses of the word. I'm just going to open up a few different tabs here. We'll let this one play. Let me go ahead and mute this, put it in theater mode. This is Futura 100 by TypeTogether. And there have been a lot of Futura revivals. I think we can all agree on that. We're going to look at a few of them here in a minute to compare it a little bit. But I think this one has something that is particularly interesting about it. And that is this right here. Futura, let's go ahead and scroll back. Futura 100 will support languages for over 90% of the world's population. So if you saw the thumbnail, you probably saw that I said that TypeType created a Futura that will cover almost every language. This is it, Futura 100. They actually haven't reached year 100 yet. Futura was designed in 1927 or released in 1927 by Paul Renner. So get this right here. Switch. We don't need to switch to the face cam. You can see right here. Paul Renner released this in 1927. So they're coming up on the 100th anniversary. I do have an article somewhere from Print Mag. Let me see. So this is Print Mag. They did a nice article on it. Kim Tidwell, she interviewed the founders. So check that out if you want. I will have this linked in the description later on. It's not right now, but I do think that the interview is interesting. But you know, if I talked about what was in the interview, there wouldn't give you any reason to go read it. So I'm going to go ahead and just look at the actual releases. So Print Mag, you can go check that out. That released on Tuesday, but let me go ahead and pull this off the screen so I can log into it. And let's talk about Futura right here. Futura 100. This is the blog post from TypeTogether. Let's see if we can zoom in on this a little bit. Yeah, as we're all aware, Futura is Paul Renner typeface. It is owned, the trademark is owned by the Bauer Type Foundry, which is actually the original Type Foundry that owned it. It's kind of changed hands, but the name still is the same. So we'll just, we'll say that it's the same. Let's scroll down here and we can see what's going on. Let me check my notes real quick, actually. Sorry, I'm trying to do three things. I'm trying to log into Premiere, TypeTogether's Premiere, because this is actually an important, interesting part of it. But I want to check my notes real quick. So they've released the first half this week in September. So this is the first half that they're releasing. These are the typefaces that are going to be released. So the first half of that 90% of the world's languages being supported are released right now. If you're watching this, you're probably a Latin, you're probably an English speaking and you're probably going to be using Latin. So yes, Latin is covered. It's just called Futura 100. I can actually go right here and we can look at all of them that are available right now. So what we're looking at now, skipping a little bit ahead, what we're looking at right now is TypeTogether Premiere. This is a program that I mentioned a few weeks ago on Typography News. And the gist is that you can apply to be in the program and they will give you access to all of their fonts. You can test them out they give you a 30-day license for you to test it out. It's not like a trial, it is a trial license, but it's not a trial font. If you've ever downloaded a trial font before, you'll know that it often comes with limited characters and, you can't fully experience what the typeface is like. TypeTogether does this incredible thing where they have TypeTogether Premiere and you can download the full typeface. And that is what I've done. I'm going to show it to you in a second, but you can see also Futura 100 is going to be the classic, Paul Renner typeface. But they've got Arabic, Armenian, Cyrillic, Georgian, Greek, Hebrew. I'm not sure how to say this. Khmer, Lao, Myanmar, Pan-African, Thai, and I think that's it because then we get into Adele. But yeah, so if you want to test this out, go apply for TypeTogether's Premier program. It's free. And as long as you're not doing anything weird, I think you'll probably get accepted. And you can test these out. But if you don't want to do that, I'm going to showcase it for you a little bit here. But let's look at some of the specimens, because I think TypeTogether does a very good job of showcasing this. And then we'll get into, I'll read a little bit of their description about it. But I think really the main takeaway here is, yes, this is another Futura revival. Yes, it's going to look very similar to any other Futura that you have. If you have one from Adobe, if you have one from Monotype, if you have one from Paratype, they're all going to look, if they're accurate, they're going to look very similar to the original by Paul Renner and Bauer. But I think this one's particularly interesting, especially with AI, because right now, we can more easily translate English into other languages, or any of these languages into English, easier than we've ever been able to before. So I do think that your content that you're creating, or the brands that you're working with, they might be able to work with languages and be in markets that they never were able to before, thanks to that translation. And I think a typeface like this, if you were already using Futura, your Futura doesn't do this. And if you weren't using Futura, but you want to work on an international scale, I think that this becomes a very compelling offering. So just going to go ahead and scroll through this while I get a drink of water. And they didn't design, this is one thing they noted in the interview. A lot of times they were saying, they noted in their interview, a lot of times non-Latin typography, when designers were working on non-Latin typography, what they would do is kind of apply the Latin standards to non-Latin typography and try to make the Latin forms fit into the local typefaces. They specifically didn't do that. So it's not one type designer that made all of these different scripts. They work together with people who, understand these different languages, these different scripts, and created a cohesive family of typefaces. But they're going to be following the principles that Paul Renner laid out, and, the simplicity, the geometry, but it's going to feel correct for the languages that the script is made for. So even though I don't understand these, you can see hints of Futura in them, right? This Futura Arabic, you can see Futura in it, just in the shapes, right? Here's another thing to note. All of the ones that have been released this week, which is 13 or 24, I can't remember. Let me see. 23 scripts actually were released. I think that's right. I'm not sure if it's 23 right now or 23 total. Let's see. 4, 8, 12. Okay, so they released half. So they've got 12 right now, and then they're going to release the other 13 in 2026. So, but in general, for all 23 of these different scripts, these different languages, I'm going to say scripts because it's not actually languages. These different scripts, there is the Futura 100 version, and then there's Futura 100 text. And text, as you can see here in the white, is going to have a little bit more breathing room for all of the typefaces. Going to have a little bit more breathing room, and it's going to look better at smaller sizes, whereas Futura 100 is going to be more of like a display type, a lot of what we think of as Futura now. Think of the Nike logo, think of the Supreme logo, think of the Louis Vuitton logo. A lot of that's going to be the display version, whereas the text version is what we would find in like books and websites and things like that. So obviously right here, we're looking at text. It does have optical sizes, and the optical sizes, let me double check this because I want to make sure. I think that the optical sizes are also built into the, I don't want to say it. I have a different typeface, but I think the optical sizes on that one are built into it, the variable axis, but I don't think they are with Futura 100 here. But yeah, we can see, I love that they've created so many great specimens on here. This looks amazing. Even though I don't speak any of these languages or read any of these scripts, you really do get a feel for it. They're even showing you some alternates here. I cannot imagine, I can't fathom. This was a 2-year project, but even then, so I know that it took less than 2 years, right? But even then, I can't imagine the amount of time, energy, and effort that went into designing a typeface that is this complete and we're only seeing half of it right now. So this is a little bit of the optical grading and stuff like that. So we're seeing it at different sizes, different weights, and then also the smaller it is, when it gets into that text weight and stuff like that, you're going to be seeing optical sizing as well. So we're almost to the bottom of this. Here are all the designers. Like I said, all of this will be linked in the description after the live stream ends. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to put it in before this week, but you can see all the people that needed to work on this. And then you can see also right here, the ones with stars are going to be released in 2026. The ones that are not in star, that don't have the little asterisk next to them, are already released. And like I said, you can get those, you could purchase them for sure. You can purchase them right here. 24 fonts for starting out at 500 and what a strange number. This must be set in a different. So for me, I'm in US dollars for about $500. If you want to add the web license, it's going to be another 500, but then when you start to bundle, it does reduce the price of the packages as you go. So if I add the font license on there, rather than just being a 500 and 500, they do give you a discount on the desktop one from there. So you'll have to look into that, get the licensing and stuff like that that you would want. It looks like they've got a pretty simple license here: desktop, web, and apps. And then obviously you get discounts for bundling, but you can test it out for free via the TypeTogether Premier program. And that's what I'm going to show you right now. So I got a few different ones on here that we can look at. I thought this was funny. Yeah, this was literally me typing out loud to myself. But if you type Futura 100, the open type feature automatically changes it. So Futura 100. Futura space 100, like it does the little trademarked version of it. So I thought that was kind of funny. I've got a couple other ones to compare here. We are looking at this in Affinity Designer, no affiliation, just my preferred vector program. I typically spend a lot more time in Publisher, but this is just easier for this. So Futura 100 looks great. This is just the regular 100. Let me go ahead and tab out of this to make sure. Yeah, okay, so that's the regular 100, not the text. It's actually the variable version. I had a little bit of trouble with the variable version, I'm not gonna lie, so a lot of this is not the variable version. But so we can see it alongside Futura Bold. This is Adobe, and then below that I've got the TypeTogether version right here. So these are a more direct comparison. You can see the spacing's quite a bit different. This Futura Bold one, I think I bought this in college. I think this is part of like Adobe's Fontfolio or something like that. Yeah, I've been hanging on to this one for a long time because the price of Futura only goes up. But yeah, so you can see it next to Adobe right here, and mine is not the Pro version. So the Pro version is going to be more similar to Futura 100. It's going to have all the open type features. It's going to have all the glyphs. It's going to have everything you want. So for me, if I really needed this for a brand, TypeTogether is just head and shoulders above what I currently have. Futura PT, this is by Paratype. It's pretty similar. I know we're looking at some different weights here. Let me see if I can, oh, I might have deactivated this, I think. Let me just double check. Yeah, I actually deactivated that one, so let's not look at that one. That's probably not even actually Futura PT on there. Sorry. But we can still look at it compared to Adobe. I think I deactivated that in my font base. So this here is Futura Text. I'm just going to zoom in at this huge. And it looks super clean. I love this. I think that the color, and when I say color, I mean like, yeah, let me zoom out real quick and I'll be able to show you. So when we look at this and it just kind of looks like a gray line, it probably looks terrible on your screen. But this is what I mean by color, like the spacing, there's no dark spots, there's no light spots. This looks amazing. This looks so much better than my Adobe version from like, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago. It looks great. But there is some weird stuff going on. When you take it up to the bolder sizes, it doesn't quite have the same spacing. I'm not sure what's going on. The spacing is very tight, as we saw up here. Just in general, the spacing here is really tight. compared to that's not Futura down here. Let's just delete that. Compared to the Adobe one, the spacing's really tight, both in the tracking and in the leading. The default set here, I noted that was 120 on 120 for Futura. Maybe that's because it's the display. Let me go ahead and change this to text and we'll see. If we change it to text, I mean, that's still pretty tight, right? And then there's some weird stuff going on with the spacing here. This could be that they didn't design it to work well in Affinity. This could be just, I don't know, a buggy issue in the typeface. But I do think that even with those spacing issues, the color with Futura 100 just looks so nice. This right here is, no, all of this is. This is Futura Adobe right here. And you can see like it's chunky, but it kind of has some gaps in there. Like the color just doesn't feel as consistent. So a long-winded way to say that there's a new Futura. It is by TypeTogether. It looks incredible. A few bugs in my software, my preferred design software, which I think is unfortunate, but nothing that would prevent me from seriously considering purchasing this if I need a Futura. I think this is the one that I would go for. Let me show you one last thing before we go. Monotype does have a version of Futura that is variable. So this is one thing I didn't note. So this version, Futura 100, is a variable typeface, which you're not going to get in most versions of Futura, but Futura Now variable. Okay. They're always renaming these things. Helvetica Now, Helvetica World, Futura Now, Futura World. Futura Now variable by Monotype also comes in variable, but you can see right here, you're not getting near the depth, and I also don't know what these are. These script Futuras and stuff like that, I don't know how that's Futura. But yeah, so you can get, there was previously a variable version available, but I think there's no doubt that this Futura 100 by TypeTogether is the most complete version of a variable Futura that is available right now. Let's keep moving on. The next one, oops, opening these in all the wrong places. The next typeface we're going to look at is, doesn't fit the mold of all of these other ones that we've been looking at. I think almost everything we've looked at so far has been pretty similar. It's that common thread that I was talking about that goes through this whole episode. This one breaks the mold, and it's pretty exciting because it has been a typeface that you may have come across before. It is Placa by, I'm going to try to say, I'm going to probably accidentally revert to my Americanized version of Laura, but I do believe her name is pronounced Laura Meseguer. So she created this back in 2014, I think. Let me check my notes. Man, I even had an email conversation with her, and I'm forgetting right now. It might actually be on here. So this was originally created. I know how to find out. Let's go to the TypeTogether's website real quick. Unless it's on here. Shoot, I'm sorry, guys. I like to be a little more organized than this. PDF specimen. Let's check this out here. Originally created in 2014. Okay, we got it. This is Placa by Laura Meseguer, but it's being released on Typo Tones, and it is available for the first time as a variable font. Love to see it. This was originally created for a movie for the title credits of Barcelona, The Rose of Fire. Let's just go ahead and let this play a little bit. I think actually we see most of it at the end, so let's go ahead and skip. Documentary about Barcelona. You can see it a little bit right here, The Rose of Fire. You can see it there at the bottom. So this was a custom typeface that she designed for these title credits, and we can see it right here. I think it gets a little brighter. Nope. Okay, let's go back a few frames. So we can see there's some narration here because they've got it in a bunch of different languages. Because it's actually not called The Rose of Fire, I believe. I'm not going to try to pronounce it. Let's check and see. It was originally La Rosa de Folk. That's probably wrong. By Manuel Huerga. But this was the title credits, and you can see them right here. This released, 10 years ago. Let's check and see. So this trailer was from 2015. She created this in 2014. But yeah, I think it's really cool when the backstory, I think it's really cool when there's a backstory that goes to it, and it's nice to see something that was created over a decade ago have the time to like simmer and really be developed into something great, like a variable font. So we're getting much more than would have ever been available in its original incarnation. So let's go back right here and we can see, I did talk to Laura and she confirmed the timeline for me. So the origins come from the movie, then it was expanded into typeface. So originally, I think it was named after the film. She just named the typeface after the film. But then it was expanded into Placa. And this was in a conversation with someone from Tourmix. And I mentioned that because it was used in the branding for this restaurant named Volta. So if we scroll down a little bit, we'll be able to see it, Placa, right here. So as we can see here, it says, inspired by the street signs of Barcelona. So originally when it was created for this movie, she was trying to capture what is the voice, because a typeface is always a voice, right? What is the voice of Barcelona? What typeface would accurately represent Barcelona? And you can see right here, these little plates where the name Placa comes from. Oh, we can't zoom in on it, sorry. But these little plates right here that are all over the city on these signs, on these building signs and stuff like that. That's what inspired this typeface, Placa. So she worked with Tourmix, gave them an exclusive license to use it on this restaurant, and we can see they used it incredibly. I think it looks amazing. Let's scroll down and we can get a few better looks at it. So you can see it here on the word bar. You can see it here used in these, I'm not sure if these are coasters or signage. Yeah, there's some kind of coasters going on here. You can see it in these, I'm not sure what these would be. These might be parts of the menu or they might be some kind of promotion. But you can see it used here and it works so well in this context. And even if you didn't know anything about it, it just feels like there's something familiar about it. Let's look at the in use right here because she used it in postcards, promotional postcards, and I think she uses it great. I love these colors on here. But it's completely different from what we've been looking at before, right? And I do think that kind of indicates there's still space for this, obviously. Obviously, this is a display typeface. It's not going to be near as fleshed out as, the Futura that's available in 90 of the world's languages or anything like that. This is going to be for Latin. But I think that it does what it does perfectly. I think that it's great that it has this backstory and perfectly encapsulates the voice of Barcelona. And if you've been around the Jectives channel for any amount of time at all, you know that I'm a sucker for the backstory. So the fact that this has the backstory of Laura creating this, the fact that it's had a decade for her to perfect it, you know that you're not going to be getting anything, I don't know what you would say it. There's not going to be anything weird going on here. This isn't throwing any shade at Future fonts because I love Future fonts and often cover the typefaces released on there. But this isn't going to be like getting a display typeface from Future fonts when you're in like a version 0.01 and there are some weird issues and stuff like that. With a typeface like this that's now available through Typotones, and actually they've got a deal going on right now for the launch of it, 20% off. You're getting a well-developed, established typeface that's been worked on over a decade, off and on, obviously. And now I think it's been perfected and it's available to the public. And if you need something that has this vibe, I think that this is a great option. Let me check the details here. Solid license I wrote down. Typotones, they do a good job with their license. The price, the variable font, you get full variable font, looks like for 220 euros. Reasonable for sure, depending on what you need it for. And yeah, I think that is all there is to say about this. Really love it. And I think there's going to be a lot of people putting this to good use now that it is available to the public. Let's talk about three typefaces that are going to be fairly similar in what they I don't want to, I don't necessarily know if the type designers would say that I would love that I would say these are similar, but I do think we're going to see a similar thread pull through of this from what we saw from Creative Boom's 50 fonts that designers are going to be using next year. This first one is by Optimo. It is Swiss type Foundry, very Swiss typeface, and it is called Facility. So this is Facility. Let me check my notes real quick. I wrote that the description was pretty much marketese. But let's go ahead and look at the description anyway, because I do think that it's worth, we can scroll through this a little bit, but you can get a vibe check, and then we'll read the official description, because I think that's the most objective way to go about this, to read what they actually have to say about it, rather than just my opinion, because we'll get to the subjective part at the end. That's unavoidable. Covering these types of things, even the stories that I choose to cover, become subjective. I think you got to feel for it, right? It is variable. There is variable upright, variable collection, and that's because you've got facility extra and facility. So I'm not sure why those are separated. I guess maybe, yeah, because it's super, yeah, it's different. It's extra. But you can see here, they've got all the open type features that you would want. They've even got diacritical alternates, which is pretty cool. I don't really, I like the nice thick ones, but maybe other people don't. And I can definitely see where there would be situations not to use that. Case sensitive forms, contextual alternates. It's going to have all the good stuff that you would want. Even got an alternate Q in there for those who want a more traditional one. But yeah, this is a very well developed, very workhorse typeface. You're not going to go wrong with this one as a workhorse for sure. Let's go ahead and get down to their description though. You can see I don't have an exact glyph count for you on this one, but you can see it's pretty extensive. Let's go ahead and read this, and then we will look at it in context, because this one is available to download a trial of, and I have done that. I'm going to go ahead and read this. Let's see if we can zoom in on it at all. I think that's about as big as we're going to be able to get it. Facility devises its own rules and has a personality that flirts with extravagance, the extravagance of the 1960s, while being undeniably grounded in modernism. I told you it's a lot of marketese. As the name suggests, it carries a sense of ease and naturally claims its own space. Designed to serve a wide range of typographic purposes, this new typeface balances warmth and competence, projecting confidence without ever tipping into austerity. Okay. Facility shows that opposites can not only coexist, but that opposites gain strength from one another. Its distinctive curves, most evident in key characters such as A and S, together with its slightly flared terminals, evoke a vibrant shape of Verner Panton. Okay. I think you have heard it in their own words, and you will probably agree that it is, you're not really going to get a lot out of that. I think you're going to get more out of it if you actually go and check out the typeface. So which one is theirs? Theirs is the one on top. This is Facility by Optimo, and this is Helvetica New. Let me check. I think this is just this is the Linotype version. So it's going to be available through Monotype, but the Linotype version of Helvetica New. And you can get kind of a vibe check on this, right? You can kind of see what's going on. There are some clear differences, if you look at the T's and stuff like that. And then you've got a little bit of a flare, like they were saying on some of these terminals. But we can look at them close up here. The bottom is Helvetica New. The top is Facility. And the one thing that I notice, and they point this out, so they talked about the A and S, so that's why I'm going to go ahead and pull these up. The A and S here, so just comparing these to Helvetica New by Linotype and Facility, you can see there is some more contrast, especially in the heavier weights, when you look at this connecting part of the top of the bowl here on the A, versus the lower contrast that you get from, what we're typically used to with Helvetica New. I do think it's slight, it's very slight, but I do think that these counters are just a little bit more open on the top here, which is going to be Facility compared to Helvetica. So you're going to get a little bit better legibility out of that. But you are losing kind of stuff like this little curved terminal on the A here. This little, I don't know if you'd call that a foot or not. You're losing this though, which could help with legibility. So give and take there. I thought that this was interesting though, because we've seen a lot of these sort of Swiss mid-century Helvetica-ish typefaces, and we will continue to see them, as we saw with the 50 fonts for 2026. This isn't going away, and there's always going to be a market and a market demand, at least for the foreseeable future, for this type of typeface. But if we look at Exot by Hot Type that we did, you know, this was in the news, I don't know, in one of the earlier episodes that we did, by Hot Type, you can see their take on it is pretty similar to Hot Type. So Optimo, Hot Type obviously came out before with Exot, and this was inspired by the Exot 51 movement. Super cool, really, really, really cool project worth checking out. We don't have time to look at it again today, unfortunately, because I'm already super short on time. But you can see that the A's on this one are even more similar. So this is that you're getting a little more contrast there on Exot, and then you get that same sort of contrast out of my keyboard shortcut's not working, out of Optimo. So I'm not here to tell you which one's better. I think what is worth looking at here and understanding is, one, there are other options other than just Helvetica. Two, a lot of it's going to come down to two things, I think. Utility. Does it have all of the open type features that you want? You know, does it do all of this stuff? Does it have all the alternate characters? Does it have, you know, all this built-in open type features? Does it have, you know, diacritical marks that can change and stuff like that? Does it have all of these extra bells and whistles? Does it have good ligatures? Stuff like that. Does it have the things that you want? Or does it not? Let's go ahead and pull this one up real quick, because this is Exot by Hot Type. Like I said, go check this one out. This isn't necessarily what we should be looking at today, but I thought this page was a lot more interesting. Maybe they have a separate page for this. This is Exot by Hot Type. Very similar, but does it have the utility that you want? The second thing, does it have the emotional resonance that you want? Because a lot of this, you know, the typefaces are very similar. You know, variable would be another one worth deciding. You know, does it have variable functionality in it? But utility and feelings. Does the backstory resonate with you? If the two fonts are exactly the same and the prices are exactly the same, which Foundry do you like better? Which backstory resonates more with you? That's going to make the difference. So that's Facility by Optimo. Let me check my notes, because I did go through this kind of fast. 18 total styles. It is variable. You can see the styles right here. 18 total styles, 9 upright, 9 oblique. It's variable. Glyph count, not sure, but it's pretty extensive, as we saw. Features, a ton of them. We saw that. You can purchase it directly through the Foundry. There's a trial available. That's what we looked at. I just have to note this. I'm not going to go into why. For me, there is a red flag with the license, but that's one that you can go look at if you're interested in buying this and decide whether or not it's a deal breaker for you. Let's look at GT Era by Grilli Type next. And anytime there's a new Grilli Type release, people get excited. This is one of the main reasons for me why I get excited, because they always do these incredible mini sites, which, you know, it's just a web page, but it's like a very in-depth web page. So this mini site for Era, GT Era, you kind of get a feel for it right here. Now, to the uninitiated, and even some of the initiated, this will feel very similar to the Swiss typefaces that we've just been looking at. Mid-century, Helvetica, stuff like that. This is actually draws inspiration from early 20th century, more similar to like Futura, Bauhaus era. So keep that in mind, because this is specifically designed to be authentic to typefaces that would have been designed prior to the advent of a lot of the technology that was available. But as you can see with the variable functionality and optical grade and the slant and stuff, it's going to have all of the features that you would want in a 2025 font, but with the charm and warmth, as they say, of these 19th century grotesques. So we're going to have to go through this fast because I literally have 15 minutes to do about an hour worth of talking. But 7 weights, 2 optical sizes, 1 slant. You can see it there. I do think it's really important to note here, they do have optical sizes. So this is display upright, this is display text upright, and this is display oblique. I think it's important to note the optical sizes because that is going to make a huge difference for your workhorse branding typography. The same way that we saw with Futura 100 earlier. They had the text weight for it. Having a text font rather than just the display or just the main one, it's just going to increase the utility tenfold. So they're talking about here how this was designed during the to mimic sort of the Bauhaus era, but before those Bauhaus and Swiss fonts and stuff like that existed, they didn't have the same tools, and fonts were just made in a different way. So they're kind of looking at the wood type versus the metal type, and I'm presuming that inspired the text versus the display weight. We're going to have to go through this way faster than I actually wanted to. I apologize to the viewers, but like I said, this will be added in a link in the description afterwards. So go ahead and check this out if you want to check it out right now. gt-era.com. Okay, we got to check this out though. So they do these little notes here. Grilli Type specimens are just on another level. They do a great job of demonstrating what's going on with the typeface, and you can see some of the how the counters change, how the apertures, whether they're more closed or more open, how they change between the different optical grades and weights and things like that. So at a huge fat, big fat bold black typeface like this, you're not going to be typing, you're not going to be typing paragraphs with that. So you can close the counters because presumably this is going to be used at a huge size if it's done by a good designer. So you can close up those counters, but when you get to the lighter weights, you're probably going to be using that at smaller sizes. You're going to actually use it for, user interface, print something to read, things like that. You're going to want the open counters to be able to actually read what's going on at the small sizes. So all kinds of stuff going on here. Man, I really wish I could get into it. You can see right here, they're actually changing the angle of the counters on these. There's a good demonstration right there as it gets thinner. So it's not just opening them up more, it's actually changing the angles of some of that stuff. So I'm going to go through the rest of this super fast because I want to pull this into Affinity Designer and we can look at it next to those other typefaces that we were just looking at. You're going to get all the bells and whistles that you would want from a typeface like this. I say that often, but I say it when it's necessary. One thing I will say, I don't know that this one has quite as many open type features. I'm presuming that it does because Grilli Type does a great job with these types of things. But that's something you would have to look into more on your own. Let me pull this up because here we're looking at, we looked at it at Facility compared to Helvetica Neue. We looked at Facility compared to Xhot. Here is Facility compared to Grilli Type. And like I said, at first glance, you'll look at this and you might think, someone might think, they're almost the same. But then as soon as you start to look at them just a little bit deeper, you see how much more humanist and how much more, they're calling it warmth, so I'll just go ahead and go with that. But you'll just see how much more character, how less neutral GT Era by Grilli Type is compared to, the typical Swiss neutral typefaces. They both have their place, but I think that GT Era could be a really interesting alternative to these neutral typefaces because it's neutral enough, but it's got a little bit more character. I subjectively really, really like it. And okay, so that's the next one down there. So we're just getting a quick look at it here. But you can see right away the numbers on here. You're going to have, you're just going to, let me think for a second here. You can see the terminals here. They pointed this out on theirs, but this terminal here is sharp on the T here. sharp on the back of the A. Whereas up here on this one, you know, we're more neutral, right? Even with the contrast, we're pretty neutral. We're going up and down. The T, you know, it chops off on the edge there, which is going to aid in, you know, that's going to make it easier to do something like this, to like kern this nice and tight if you wanted, because you've got that space there. But this one here, it's just got that character, you know, and it doesn't rely so much on Swiss standards and neutrality and stuff like that. And it just has a little bit more character to it for, you know, at my own dismay for repeating the same word over and over again. But this one's huge. Love this. I wish that I would have put it early in the show so we could talk about it a little bit more. But anytime there's a Grilli Type release, I think it's worth checking out. You can download the trial for free. And then they have, you know, top tier. Let's get this back up. They have top tier licensing. Licensing is super simple on here. Let me pull it up real quick for you. Oh gosh, we're having a little trouble there, aren't we? So looks like for the family, we're looking at about, let's remove this real quick. For the full family, if we don't want the web, just the desktop, I feel like that's the best base to look at. If you want the full family, we're looking at $420 for the text and the display. And then like we saw before, if you get the web, you know, you start to get some bundling discounts and stuff like that. So let's move on. So little time, so many great typography stories to talk about. The last new typeface we're going to look at is Big Sans. This is by Big Type, but it's being, her name is right here, Carol. Her Foundry is Big Type, but it's being released through Blaze Type. So there are a number of reasons why people might do this. I'm not going to speculate as to why Big Sans is being released through Blaze Type, but it is. So the interesting thing with this one is what Carol is calling the dual nature of the typeface. And basically what that's going to be is it's going to be the ability to turn it from more geometric, neutral, grotesque into a more humanist, like warm forms. So I do wish I had more time. Let's go ahead and read the details here real quick. Big Sans is a contemporary sans serif with two distinctive typefaces, one grounded in precision of grotesques, the other shaped by the warmth and rhythm of humanist forms. So this isn't two typefaces. This isn't two separate families like we saw with the display and text versions. This is actually one file that's going to be, you turn on and off the alternates. So you can see right here, there are some very unique characters. There's some very unique contrast going on here with the D's. You can see particularly with this F, there's a lot of character in that F, right? That's something that you can take out if you want to. But you can see here all of the different weights on this. Let me check my notes, it might be faster. 18 styles, 9 weights, so it's going from thin to extra bold, Roman and slanted, and it is variable. I didn't count the glyphs, but as you can see here, it is very extensive. Let's go to like a bigger one so we can see them better on the screen. As you can see here, the glyphs are pretty extensive. You're going to be covered in all of your Latin languages, probably some more than that too. You're going to maybe be able to make fractions. You got some ordinals on there, circled numbers, you got some ligatures going on, lowercase alternates. This is where the humanist part comes in. So look at all of these alternates for the lowercase. You got some uppercase alternates as well that are going to open up some of those counters. Small cap alternates, numeral alternates. There's so much going on with this typeface. Big Sans. Let's pull this up so we can compare it to the ones that we've been looking at. Facility is just our standard today since that's the first one. This was actually my facility testing file and I started throwing everything else in there. But you can see this is clearly, I didn't change this, did I? Let's make this nice and mid-century style. So this is clearly very similar in that, you know, at first glance, it's going to look very Swiss, but you've got a ton of contrast in it. So it's like you take this Swiss typeface and then you add a bunch of contrast to it, and it makes it feel very different. See how small we can make this. So I got to open this up to show all of the alternates on here. But if we just click, so you can specifically go through and you can change, let me zoom in here real quick. You can go through, this is Big Sans. You can go through and you can turn on the alternates for the A's. You can turn them on for the Y. We got a Y somewhere. We got a Y right here. So you can turn on the alternates for the Y's. And you can turn on the alternates for the G's. It's going to go from 1-story to 2-story. Nice. But we can also go ahead and just do humanist set, and then it changes it. Let me go ahead and zoom in here. See how much more open these are? It's going to help with your legibility a lot. And then also shifts the arch here, this stress of the H from more central, more centered weighted balance to more humanist, which kind of pushes out towards the edge there. And you can see with the A's, it's going to open up your A as well quite a bit. And then you can also turn on, you know, all these alternates if you want to. But yeah, I think that's really cool. I don't know. I don't know what problem this necessarily solves. I guess maybe you could do headline in the typical and the standard version of Big Sans, and then kick it over to the humanist version for your body copy and stuff like that. That could be one way I could see it being used. Definitely, if you were doing some big display, you know, poster or something, you would want to use the regular one, just because it's going to look a little nicer, I think. But the humanist ones, yeah, I could see the value in having both of these built into one font file. Obviously, if you're doing web design with this, it's going to take up, you know, half the space because you're going to be using one font file for 2 different styles rather than 2 different fonts. And that's always going to be a nice thing. Let's minimize this real quick. But yeah, it's a variable font. You're going to have 18 styles, like we said before. It is being released through Blaze Type. This is another one that I would say the license is kind of a red flag for me. I don't I don't love the license on here, but you can get free trials. So see, you can see the license right here. We've got license for all kinds of different variables. I'm gonna get to this last thing because I really think that it's worth looking at, but I'm not gonna be able to talk about it very much. This is Type du Nord. Wrote this. This came in the email newsletter. So this is part of the email. I consider this to be kind of a blog. But yeah, great newsletter to subscribe to. I'll have this linked in the description as well. Type du Nord, Substack. I don't love Substack. I kind of despise Substack. But if the newsletter is good enough, I will deal with the Substack nonsense. But you can probably see what this is. Type du Nord. I wish that I would have paid attention to what the actual, maybe it's at the very bottom. Let's see. I want to see if it's signed. Libby. So this is by Libby. Libby at Type du Nord went to Minnesota State Fair, and being from the Midwest originally, you know, I always say that I'm from Las Vegas because I spent the last 14 years there, but I spent the beginning of my life born and raised in Illinois, so I'm a Midwest boy. Being from the Midwest, going to the county fairs, going to the state fairs, this feels so familiar. Libby wrote this newsletter blog entry about going to the state fair and seeing all of these seed bags and stuff like that, and just admiring the typography on it. And she even links to a YouTube video that goes over, this is probably gonna pop up an ad because I'm not using my, oh nope, there it goes. Pulls up this one by Ron Kelsey, all these seed sacks. I'll link that as well because it's really cool to look at. That one's published by PBS, so you know it's no nonsense. But yeah, just a really cool, fun break from all of the industry. You know, sometimes the industry stuff can be a little bit overwhelming and you kind of feel like you're on a treadmill. I love to look back at stuff like this and take inspiration from it, but just, I don't know, take solace in the fact that humans made these things. Like I said in the beginning with Arcane Type, how like it really does feel like this magical thing that we're kind of carrying on this tradition of. And I think you can look back at these seed bags. I'm not sure when these are from. They look, 50 to 70 years old. There's something so tangible about these, right? Like they just feel so real, and you feel like you could touch these, and like the typography on there, and designers that didn't nearly have the tools and the knowledge and the the accessibility that we have now. There was no typography news back when these were made. The fact that people put these together, and the fact that we can still take inspiration from these today, it really is, at the risk of being repetitive, it really is very inspiring. And I think that there is optimism that can be taken from looking back at stuff like this. I think there's optimism that can be taken from seeing the shakeups at the foundries. And I think there can be optimism in the fact that people still feel the need, and there's still the market desire for typefaces that are incredibly similar to the untrained eye. So I'm going to have all this linked in the description after the show. I don't think anyone's really hanging out live right now. So I'm talking to you in the future. Hello. Thank you for watching this long. I'm going to have all this linked in the description, so you can go check this out on your own time and you won't be rushed by me. But I'm going to go ahead and switch back to the face cam so we can say our goodbyes. Yeah, this was Objective Typography News number 17. Like I say quite often, this is an iterative process, trying to get better every week. If you have feedback, please leave it in the comments, and subscribe if you want to see more typography news, more book reviews. I'll be back next week for hopefully some more optimism and some more great typography news. Thanks for watching.